out, my car is now full of stuff.
I'll have to close back.
I guess I can put it back by the side of the road, I don't know. Okay. I think I might cry over this one.
No.
God, we've tried hard.
Yes, you have.
Like I said, we had it. We had it.
I know when you called me, I thought, you're done?
Yeah. She said that she told me in the parking lot of Palmdale Station, she goes, "You saved my life," and she goes, "and this is the step in the right direction." And then, like I said, 30 minutes later, I got a message saying she canceled it.
Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna watch the motorhome now. That's my job. AG 007 now is watching the motorhome. We've had so many complaints on that situation.
Right.
First, it started in the commercial property, or the M1, whatever that is there. And everybody saw what they thought was drug dealings going on. Okay.
Alright, so, discussion on proposed Dollar General store. So we received a notice that there is a Dollar General store that is, they're applying for their, where are they at? We got a contact from the county.
No, they said, somebody contacted us saying, hey, we've done everything Christine wanted.
Yes, and that the next step was to come talk to the council.
And then I sent an email back saying, sending it to Christine saying, okay,
Yeah, what?
our calendar's full through December. They never got back to us, and I thought Christine got back to us saying, we don't have anything.
Yeah.
That's why I don't know
Yeah.
if there really is a project or not. Don't know. We don't know anything about it.
I got some information from somebody who said that, Ron Hoffman's property was sold to them.
Well, that was a year ago when there was a talk of a Dollar General. That's where it was supposed to go, but that was a year ago, so
More recent.
I have no idea. Nobody knows anything other than some person who I've never heard of reached out to us and we wanna come talk. So we said, what days are good for you? And that was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it was not.
And nothing come. And I CC'd Christina so that she was aware.
Well, that Ron's property is commercial, I believe.
Yes, it is. Part of it is and part of it isn't. But the last time I checked on it, which was about 30 days ago, it had been in escrow, but it hadn't closed escrow. Do you have new information that it actually closed? Okay. And I was told at that time that it had been in escrow for 1 year as an option to buy. I could have wrong.
And just,
Teasing with putting it up for sale for a long.
and just so people have a location on what we're talking about, it's,
Directly across the street from the bank.
From the Acton Markets.
Yeah.
Well, it's
The new Acton Market.
It's right across the street.
And the old Acton Market, so Acton Markets.
It's right across the street from the bank on Crown Valley Road. And the back part of the property is residential, front is commercial.
It was listed quite a while ago for sale.
Well, he's been throwing up the flagpole to see who salute for, a long time.
We asked them to submit plans, and we need to have them at least 2 weeks before we schedule them here, so that the public has time to see it before they actually get here. So as soon as we get them, we'll post them on our website, but we don't know when they're coming, don't know what they're doing, don't know where they're doing it, or when they're doing it.
So basically, we have no information other than what we
No
have.
information.
just that they reached out, and so, or somebody on their behalf reached out, so.
It's the radar.
It's email, via email.
Oh, we have an email?
Yeah,
Okay, I haven't checked that email.
there was just an email basically saying what you said, which was that they had done what they needed to do, and the next step was to meet with the council.
When we left the door open to them,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
haven't
yeah.
walked through it yet, so.
Alright. SCA ordinance, discussion, update discussion.
Well, we had homework from the workshop, I don't know if you remember that. I don't know, did anyone do their homework? We were supposed to get back to them or talk about what we think appropriate mitigation ratios are. So I spent most of the day going through in detail the ordinance itself. And they, as you know, they have 5 categories. Category 1 has endangered, threatened, rare plants and animals. Category 2 has species that are sensitive or highly important to maintain biodiversity. Category 3 are communities likely to someday become imperiled unless circumstances change. Under category 1, it's a 5-to-1 offset ratio or 83% taking. Under category 2, it's a 4-to-1 offset ratio or an 80% taking. Category 3, it's a 3-to-1 ratio, 75% taking. Now that's important because these are for categories of plants and animals that are not endangered, not listed, not threatened, not even threatened to be threatened. They just could someday become threatened if development continues unabated. Yet for that category, it is a 75% taking of land. Then we have category 4, which is a 2-to-1 ratio, 66% taking.
What do you mean, category? Oh, yeah, you're right.
So now we're going to category 4. Category 4 are those lands that are secure natural communities, not threatened in any way, not even in peril to someday become threatened unless things change. So that is a 66% taking for those categories. So those are the 4 categories that the California Fish and Wildlife acknowledge, but regional planning has 5. So their 5th category is everything that's not in 1 through 4. Okay. So it has even less biological resource value than secure communities that aren't in danger of anything. And for those, it is the taking of. So one of our tasks was to come back to them with what we think appropriate mitigation ratios are for those areas. I think it's a big ask to ask somebody to give up half their land to save
Nothing.
Actually, no, nothing is category 4. It's less than nothing. And I think that a 66% taking, asking somebody to give up 66% of their land to save nothing,
Yeah,
is a big
ridiculous.
ask too.
Yeah, I think all of them are egregious, to be honest.
So, well, I could understand category 1, and that's
Yeah,
federal.
correct. Yeah, I get that, but then even then, I meant like personally, like a 50%, like.
Yeah. Well, I haven't even gotten to the work,
Yeah.
what I think is even just as bad, I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So, you know, we've had several meetings with them, and I've asked several times, what is category 2, what is category 1, tell us what that looks like. And we all know that, like, the stickleback or the whatever, we know that's federally endangered, that's category 1. We probably all have a good idea what category 1, the implications of category 1 are. But it's category 2 through 5 that are,
ambiguity.
So here's something, so the coast horn lizard, also known as the Blainville's horn lizard, also known as the San Diego coast horn lizard, also known as some other thing.
As a horned toad.
Phrynisoma blainvillei. Okay, so that is not threatened, it's not listed. It is on Fish and Wildlife's watch list, okay? So you would think, okay, maybe that would be category 3 or category 4, but no, it's actually category 2, which is what I asked her, both of them, all 3, 2 biologists and the planner, what is category 2 and does the coast horn lizard fall in there? Because coast horn lizards are all over Acton. And I never got quite the right answer. I said, I asked her, I said, I can't tell if it's category 2 or category 3 or category 4. It seems to me like it should be 4. Well, I did confirm today that I pulled up all these lists in Latin, and I found this one. And one list I found in a Fish and Wildlife list puts it in category 2. Another list I found it on puts it in category 3. Because according to Fish and Wildlife, but in the most recent revision, they dropped it down to category 3. Now, folks are actually protected by state law, right? And several county ordinances, several county requirements. Yet for some reason, oak woodlands are in category 3 And juniper woodlands, which aren't listed anywhere on anything, are category 2. So I don't understand why juniper woodland has more higher preservation than oak woodland. And then even worse, okay, they don't define what a juniper woodland is.
Yeah.
So I asked the biologist this in 2014, 15 maybe. And the answer I got back was, well, we will, I
You
think he
know
said,
if you
look,
see it?
no. He said, we would use the blah, blah, blah definition. And I said, okay, he emailed it back. What is the blah, blah, blah? I can't remember the name, but it was something, he didn't say blah, 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 obviously. It was some biology term, which I don't recall. And he said, well, their definition is 1% coverage. So then I did some math. In my property, I have some junipers that full out, not the root system, not the trunk system, but the full, junipers grow out.
Yeah.
About 20 feet in diameter. If you have 2 of those on 1 acre, you are at 440 square feet, which is 1% of an acre. So if you have an acre of property and 2 of these large junipers on it, that's 1% coverage. Now, I have emailed him back saying, so are you telling me on 1 acre parcel, if I have 1 juniper here, catty corner, the other juniper here, that's a juniper woodland, and that whole, he never got back to me. But I couldn't find in the ordinance the definition of woodland. I couldn't find the definition of juniper woodland. So these are problems I have, right? So some questions I have is, where am I? Okay, clarification on what the horn utility would be, whether it's category 2 or 3. Where is juniper woodland defined? And then the 1%, that's 2 junipers on 1 acre, so that property owner is just dead. They're category 2. That's, as I said, that's an 80% set aside. Why are oak woodlands moved from Cat 2 to Cat 3, but juniper woodlands not? And then I was looking at their set aside provisions, and what they do is they have their preservation mechanisms. You either dedicate to a nonprofit land conservation. I assume that means dedicate means some sort of, you can't give it to them, you can't grant it to them, because that would be a subdivision if you're splitting off your property from theirs. So I don't know what exactly that looks like or what that means, but dedication to a nonprofit, that's their first mechanism. The second one is conservation or mitigation bank. You preserve it in a conservation or mitigation bank. The third one is you do a recorded conservation easement. The fourth one is you do a permanent on-site deed restriction. The fifth one is a covenant between county and property owner. And then the sixth one was conservation in lieu fees. Now you don't get to pick which one. You have to do the highest rated one, and you only get a drop to a lower one if you can prove that the higher one is infeasible or less beneficial. And it's not beneficial to you, it's beneficial to, I don't know what it is, but I know it's not to you.
Yes. Anybody but
So what bothers me about this is I've been working with a lot of people up in the Antelope Valley. And the Centennial Project, which is, they have a huge area set aside, it's really good, setting aside all this land. But the set aside itself is not any of these things. The property owner gets to keep it. And they get to drive through it and ride through it, hunt on it even. And so I don't understand why a private property owner in Acton has to give up potentially 80% of their land to a nonprofit land conservation and then show why that's unfeasible, but then they have to do it to a bank, and then why that's infeasible. Why they have to do that, but Centennial can just, we're gonna preserve it, but nobody's allowed on it, it's for us, we can use it, we can hunt on it. They've been known to hunt mountain lions on it. And I just wonder, can a private property owner, if they give it to a non-profit land conservation, are they allowed to walk across it?
Trespassing, or.
Are they?
Yeah.
I don't know, do they still own, I don't know. One thing, regional planning came, we had a meeting, it was a very good meeting, and they were very receptive to some of our concerns, but some of these current concerns I wasn't able to articulate till we had our workshop, so I could understand what they were trying to do. So these notes sort of fell out of that. But they did say, one concern I had is if you do any of these things, nonprofit land conservation, whatever, recorded conservation easement, blah, 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 we have to have the right for emergency response vehicles and fire trucks to go over that land to protect structures or people or whatever. And they agreed that they would put that in, because some of the land here on the Sierra Colonas in Acton is preserved and no mechanized vehicles are allowed on it, not even fire trucks. So firefighters have been stopped, right? They like to fight fires on ridge lines, but they couldn't even get to the ridge line. So it came up and over, anyway.
My concern, just at a high level, is just like you said, there's too much ambiguity, so the stuff all left to, when they can't articulate it, we can't figure out what they're trying to articulate, it seems terrifying.
It is, I believe that they genuinely believe, and I believe they have done this too, I agree with this too, that they've tried to make it impact-based, and I appreciate that, and I think it is so much better than where it was a year ago. But I don't think that people in Acton really realize that Category 2 lands on them like a ton of bricks, because it includes juniper woodland,
Which is like everything.
and it includes, yeah, it is everything, and it includes, coast-torn lizards. There might be other things it includes, I just.
Yeah, but those are the high, those are the obvious.
Well, those are the two I know about.
But there are also ones that I think, there's everywhere, I mean, like, those are ones that.
Yeah, I don't know about like whiptail something or others, or legless, whatever.
No, those
They
are all over
might-
the place too, both of those, I can tell you that.
Well, see, that's what I don't know, it's like, I don't know that stuff. But, so, we have homework, and I know we can't vote tonight, we don't have a quorum, but that was our homework, and we have committed to getting back to them on this issue.
Do we have a date that we?
No, but we need to,
No,
they knew
I-
we couldn't, we had to discuss it, didn't have a meeting, so we couldn't, we told them that we had to discuss it in a meeting, I just didn't, I was thinking this meeting would be a meeting. But, I thought we'd have a quorum, well, you know what I mean, I thought we'd have a, whatever.
So, do we need to try to schedule a
Yeah, that's what I was
workshop
gonna say.
meeting with us?
I think we should schedule something.
Oh, and then here's something else I don't understand, on page 77 of the guidelines, it says, this is in terms of mitigation. Habitats that do not have suitable habitat available for natural open space preservation will be required to provide equivalent amounts of natural open space off-site. I'm sitting here thinking, if the stuff is on the land, how is it not suitable?
How is it not habitat, yeah, how's habitat not habitat?
How is it not suitable habitat?
Yeah.
If it's suitable for an 80% taking, how is it not
Not
suitable
suitable.
for preservation?
And then why is it suitable, not suitable, and I gotta go acquire some other property somewhere
Yeah,
else
it's
that
like-
mitigates it.
If it's not suitable enough to be preserved, it's certainly not suitable enough to be designated as something that needs to be preserved.
Yeah,
Am I making sense?
yes.
There's like stuff I don't even freaking understand. And then there's one other thing. I'm sorry. Okay, they talk about, dead branches and things, but what about dead trees? Cause, okay, if you go in and any tree in the SEA, you trim a branch that's more than 2 inches in diameter, and sometimes you have to. Let's say you buy a property and some branches on the lower branches, they're bigger than 2 inches, but, cause you have to trim your trees up for the fire, they have to be up whatever number of feet. You got the what's called limbing up, right?
10 feet.
You take off limbs that are 4 inches in diameter, you have to get a tree permit to prune your trees. No,
Yeah.
it's like, that seems kind
Draconian?
of,
That's why Paradise burned down, they couldn't trim their trees.
well, that's why I'm wondering, I don't know if the people who are writing this have ever actually had to do defensible space for fire.
No, and I don't know that any of them would agree to losing 70% of their house. Just because we said, hey, there could be something, could live here.
As we discussed in the meeting.
Yeah.
And you have to get, for trees, if you have to get a CUP, an SCA CUP, if what you do encroaches on, removes more than 2 trees. That's a CUP, that's serious.
Yeah.
And no matter what, if you have a 100-acre parcel, if you wanna take out 2 trees, now, we do have the exemption that they give us in the Animal Valley for residential uses, but still, it's like mind-boggling. If you have a 100-acre lot, you wanna take out 2 trees, you have to go through the process. Or if you have a 2-acre lot, and you take out 2 trees.
Yeah.
And I asked them again, how are the supervisors going to decide whether or not this is a good SEA ordinance if they don't even know what G2, S2, G3, S3, because everything's built on these G2, S3 categories, and they don't say what that is. So how, I don't know how, no offense, but I don't know how Supervisor Barber is going to say, yes, that seems reasonable.
It's only put on hold because of this question. It was supposed to go to the planning commission, regional planning last month, and that got pushed back, so.
Oh, okay.
They're just kind of thinking about it over and
Okay.
over. It was supposed to go to the planning commission last month, but she said, no,
Okay.
no, so.
Well, then we need to give them something else to think about, but I guess we need to wait to vote, right, or
Yes.
something.
Yeah, but I do think we should try to get some time scheduled to discuss it.
So we can't do that tonight?
No.
We have to wait till our December 3rd meeting?
I think we can't vote on it.
No.
I mean, we can't even suggest a date or,
Well, I think we could say, take something offline, and we can send out an email and try to get a time and then post about it.
But I would appreciate, cause you know, maybe I read this wrong, if other people could do it, and then we could compare notes.
Yeah, I think it's a
Because,
good suggestion, but I don't think that you read it wrong. It seems like it's pretty,
well,
straightforward in the nonsense.
yeah, but it's,
well, what we've discovered is it's not explainable to us as, and we're not,
Well, my
I
fear
mean-
is that when it comes down to when somebody goes to do anything, there's gonna be 1,400 different ways to
Yeah, there's
interpret
gonna
whatever
be.
it is. And then
Exactly.
how do they just, who decides that that thing exists on whatever property, right? Who comes in and says, hey, you know, do you have to pay the biologist?
Yeah.
The county sent someone out? I don't know, there's not, it seems like a very,
oh, I, also on that, I asked that question, I said specifically,
that's our job.
if, okay, so the ordinance says if the animal's present, or if
Yeah.
the species is present, like the plant, okay? And I said, so if they do not see a coast
Then
horned
they clear it,
lizard,
yeah.
then it doesn't count. However, in the guidelines, it says,
if it could
in
be.
the presence of a species,
Oh, that's
quote,
right,
may be
that's right.
determined by habitat features. And if a habitat feature indicates presence of a species, then a buffer is assigned. So if they have something that indicates a species
Yeah,
might be
could
there,
look
even
like
if they don't see
Yeah,
the species.
yeah.
So the guidelines say exactly the opposite of what they said in the
Well, the good news is that if it can't get onto a fire truck and all burns down, nothing can live there, so then you get it back? I mean.
See, this is why other people need to write it, you should write that
Yeah,
down. 'cause-
I just, okay, so, yeah. All right,
So what do you wanna do?
well, I don't know that we propose it, I just think we ought to just try to get together, get a meeting time together to.
But we can't do that till.
I don't think we can make a motion to do it, but we could just say that.
So is it not gonna be on the agenda for December 3, or are you talking a special meeting?
I think we get a special meeting, I think, I think that it's something we need to hash out more in depth than we can do in a 15 or 30-minute slot. I mean,
Okay, well, it'll have to be a public meeting, so.
Correct, yeah, no,
Okay.
yeah.
So I guess what we'll do is when
We will notify.
I don't think we even need to vote on that, we can just call it,
Yeah,
the
that's-
president can call it, so.
Correct, so
So
we will do
when that
that.
happens, we'll let you know, the
Yeah.
press, all 3 people.
Yes, we'll let the press know and we will put it on the site and we'll do all the things, we'll put it on our Facebook page and send out a newsletter, we'll do all.
But then for the notes, it means that we're not gonna do anything till December 3rd to even call this special.
No, we'll probably call it before, I don't know if the meeting will be before December 3rd, but we'll organize the meeting. Maybe
Okay, and
sometime.
we're gonna post it on our,
We'll let the press know and we will put it on all of our
okay.
ways that we have to disseminate.
Okay.
All right.
That's it.
Filming standards discussion.
Could I ask that we do illegal dumping first?
Sure.
Because Deputy Soffa's here,
Yeah.
he needs to leave by 9, and,
Good to know.
Oh, okay.
you've probably got to get put on that.
Yeah. All right, illegal dumping.
Real quick.
Yeah.
So, the DA's office is still doing their part. So they seem to be citing more people. So I don't know if it's just because of the vehicles that they're in, that they don't look like radio cars or whatever, but they are Joe Preby's still going out there, he's still citing people. You've got regional planning, building and safety, those guys are still going out there, still doing their notices of violations. And the other day, for those that are familiar with it, behind Vincent Hill. So you got Pleasant Valley, Tucker Ranch Way, that place up there. You have one of the houses up there off of Peaceful Valley. You had 2 people that were responsible for a lot of the dumping that was going on. They were directing the trucks in, getting whatever they were getting paid. But one of the guys responsible for it, who had a truck registered to him, I found it in Agua Dulce. And it is now at Clark and Howard. So it got impounded. So I know it's been going on for months, and I finally got a hold of one truck that I could tow, and I did. So hopefully he doesn't get his truck back anytime soon, or I would like to think it's going to be a hefty impound fee too. So.
That's awesome.
So, but
That
that's-
sends a big, loud signal.
So, and if I didn't say this at the last meeting, the resident deputy for Leona Valley, he says he has been seeing a lot of dump trucks going out that way. So we may have pushed them out of Agua Dulce and Acton. They're just going further east.
I was at the Littlerock Town Council meeting 2 weeks ago, same thing. They're all over at Lake L.A. and Littlerock. They've been pushed out there. They're not
So-
happy with Acton because we got them pushed out.
Yeah, I don't wanna say it's good they're going out there, but if they stop here in Agua Dulce, I'm happy, but I don't wanna just relocate a problem either.
Yeah. So we were going to, I guess we can't do it at this meeting, but we were going to take a vote to write a letter of support to get points on driver's licenses when they get pulled over for whatever. So can we do that at the next meeting? Because we definitely need to do that.
That also has been talked about at these legal dumping meetings in Alhambra. So, yeah, the district attorney is also like, because she has mentioned that also, because these guys, if we get them, if we cite them for the illegal dumping, a lot of them are making a lot of money under the table. So it affects them, but it doesn't affect them a lot.
That's where it hurts.
But if we do get them for any type of moving violation where there is points that go against their commercial license, that will hit them harder than citing for illegal dumping, because that is their livelihood.
And we agreed to do that, but wait till after the election, because we weren't sure who the elected
Yeah,
officials were
we're
we were
ready
gonna
to.
send it to. So now that the election's over, we can definitely do that next.
I think we voted to do it, so I think we just have to.
Oh, okay, I don't remember, I don't.
Yeah, we'll have to look at the minutes, but I thought we voted to, we just were holding off on who we sent it to. So,
Well, then somebody can draft
I
that.
think you're right. Yeah, we were just waiting.
Yeah, I think we were just waiting to see who to send it to.
So who's gonna draft, did anyone draft the letter? Don't look at me, I'm not the dumping person.
Yeah,
I don't wanna be the dumping person either. Okay.
we'll look and see. And we'll get to it. All right, anything?
That's it.
All right, awesome,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks very much.
And thank the DA's office for the gentleman, Mr.
Creedy.
Creed, I never say his name right.
Oh, yes, there's, I do need to talk to him, because he was talking, there was talk about a special meeting also, to where he may actually get portable scales also,
Yeah.
and so,
If you would express our appreciation to him too, I'd appreciate it, thank you.
absolutely.
He also said that they might be able to get a second person to work full-time.
Oh, he is
Yeah.
also trying to get a second full-time person
Yeah.
also.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
I contacted Mo and Oscar, and I heard back from Mo this morning, and he said that within the last 3 weeks, they've only issued one notice of violation, and that was in Paloma Canyon Road, which is up there. That's a new location.
Yeah, that's, I've not heard.
Yeah. But they feel like the writing of the citations is working and that Mr. Prevey and Deputy Soffa are doing excellent work.
Pelona Canyon Road.
Kelowna?
Kelowna,
Yeah.
up Red Rover.
Off of Red Rover Trail, Red Rover Trail, Lone King.
And that was Mo you talked to?
Yeah, Mo responded back to me. I haven't heard from Oscar yet. I'm sure he responded to both of them.
All right, good, good. Well, thanks for progress.
Well, I'm sorry they're in Lake L.A. and Littlerock, but it took us, yeah, oh, in Leona Valley, that's right. Doggone it.
All right, back to filming standards discussion.
Okay, I'm just gonna repeat basically what we said at the last meeting, because nothing has really changed in the last 2 weeks. Gary Smith of the Chief Executive Office says that the final draft should be out sometime in January, and public comments will be welcome at that time again. And, the next draft will include threshold limits, because right now they're working with, county council to work out those specifics. So the next draft will have more specific language, which is something that we were
Yeah.
griping about, that there was no specifics. And, he said that it will come in the next draft. So they're still working on it. In the meantime, they are implementing our revised Acton conditions, as they stand without those specifics, and we just wish we knew what the specifics were, but they're, you know, I think for the most part, they're being respectful. There's been some permits that have gone through that were filming overnight, but they felt that because of the location of the permit, it's kind of, you know, in the middle of Soledad Canyon area, and it wasn't gunshots or explosions, so.
Yeah, also
Anyway.
wasn't in Acton.
What?
Is that?
That Rio, it wasn't, groceries not in Acton,
Yeah.
so.
So, I got nothing, basically that's it. Just kind of sitting and waiting.
So basically it'll be out in January, is that what it is?
They said the next draft will be out in January, they're hoping it's the final draft, that'll receive comments from us.
Okay.
We'll get a chance to comment, because we wanted to know what their criteria were for limits. And, they didn't mention any specific limits in the last revision. So, but they will supposedly in this next draft, according to Gary, according to his email, that's what he said. So, we'll see.
When was that email, Ruthie?
Maybe 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
All right, high-speed rail. I'm sure we have, a lot to talk about on this.
Somebody else can start. I mean, there was 5 of us town council members that went to the meeting last Thursday on November 15th in Burbank, to basically testify again before the high-speed, rail authority. And there was at least 10 to 12 community members there, plus our superintendent of schools was present. The board did finally approve the refined, SR 14 route as their preferred route for Acton, but with 3 points that were brought up, kind of late in the meeting by Michael Rossi, who is, on the board, obviously. And what it was determined was that they'll be included for further study in the draft EIR, and it was the noise impacts in rural communities, the water well impacts, from tunneling, and also to take a closer look at the fault zones, and especially for tunneling that was located under homes. So Michael Rossi brought that up, and then the rest of the board agreed that that was to be included. So further study was to be determined on that. Dylan Lundy was there and spoke on the valley fever issue, And Dan Richard, directed the staff to directly contact Dylan personally and do more research on the valley fever, and Jackie, you can add to that one, or Ruthie too. Chairman, one of the quotes that Chairman Dan Richard said was, "The goal is not to stop or end the high-speed rail, but in fact to focus on the remaining important environmental aspects." Santa Clarita Mayor Pro Tem Marcia McLean was there, and she spoke adamantly about the changes that have been made there, and she said that Santa Clarita City Council had sent a letter to the High Speed Rail Authority sometime within this last month, and insisting that it be completely underground through their community.
Everywhere, she said.
Oh, did she say
She
everywhere?
said everywhere.
Okay.
She's always been
She's always been
supportive
on,
of
yeah,
protecting Ashland.
yeah, protecting other communities. She wasn't, yeah. I recently started reading the state auditor's report, and it is very unfavorable for the high-speed rail, what she has come up with. I was hoping to get a printout and bring it tonight, and I didn't get that accomplished, but she had some pretty serious comments that her staff made about the feasibility of the study, the financial aspects, how they've mismanaged the whole project. I think it said mismanaged. Do you remember? Okay. One of the other things, so, I mean, to me that looked really helpful for us. I'm still wondering what happened to the federal audit. I've never heard another word about that or been able to find anything about it either, but there was supposed to be a federal audit done also. One comment that Dan Richards said, I think he said this directly to me because I was upset. Been doing this for 8 years and I'm tired of it. And don't ask me why I'm crying again, okay? I cried then, I cried now, I don't know. He said, I'm not going to overly promise, but I will give you this commitment. We have more work to do in your community and we'll do it. I think that's what he said. Jeannie, you were there, you guys were there.
I promise you, we'll take care of your town.
Okay, I didn't get that. There was a lot of discussion about the significant cost increase of this project that started out as a $33 billion project back what the voters voted for in November of 2008. I went back and looked at that number and now it's at 77 billion, and they're projecting that it'll be actually in the $120 billion before it's done, and that we really won't even see a train running until 2025. So, and you guys were there. I know you've got stuff to add
We
too.
can add first, Michelle.
Just that I kind of Googled Gavin Newsom's take on high-speed rail, and
Yeah, I tried.
at the time he was interviewed, his view was that he would like to see the northern route completed because it's already under construction. And then he would like to see it prove itself for a few years before they think about doing anything on the southern route. So, to me, that was a little bit more sensible approach than going ahead and trying to build the southern route. I remember at the meeting, there were lots of people there speaking. And I was very proud of everybody from Acton that got up and spoke.
It's a hard thing to do.
Yes, it
I
is.
think we conveyed our feelings well and respectfully. And I was very proud of that because there were some communities there that had a little bit harder time with that whole respectful thing. But there were 3 people out of the whole group that were there speaking and addressing the board. There was only 3 people that spoke in favor of the high-speed rail, and that kind of shows you how the tide had really turned against high-speed rail. Because out of all the people that were there, there was an official from Palmdale, and there was a gentleman from the Sierra Club, and then there was another individual that were pro high-speed rail, but even that gentleman said, I can see that this route has a lot of opposition, so maybe this route should be scrapped, and you guys should go back to the drawing board and try to think outside the box. But he was pro high-speed rail, he wanted to see the project be built, just maybe not necessarily this route. So that's what I remember on top of what Pam already said.
And the only thing two things I remember was, and I need to look at the transcript, because I thought one of the things Mike Rossi mentioned was the one gal on the far end, White, I think was her name, was concerned about, faults and fractures and
Right.
undergrounding through faults and fractures.
Yes.
Which is never an issue that we brought up too much, because the route is what the route is, faults and fractures and all, and they're underground throughout most of Acton, anyway. But I thought he had said, looking at tunneling, also where this isn't exactly the way he said it. That's the impression I got from what he said, was that his discussion of tunneling is not limited to places where they're just proposing tunneling. Because there were people there were a lot of, 2 years ago, there were a lot of people there opposing certain routes in certain areas. So in many of those areas, they put the routes underground. And now a few people have come back and saying, we don't want it underground in these areas where they put it underground because there were so many people who didn't want to, remember that?
Yeah, I do.
So, but I thought Rossi's comments, and again, I have to look at the transcript, but I thought he said, look at tunneling, but it wasn't just a tunneling in places where they're already proposing tunneling. So, I took that as areas that aren't doing tunneling. That's one thing. But I could be wrong, a lot of things are going on. But I do remember this. Mr. McLaughlin is in charge of the high-speed rails environmental studies, statewide. He's the NEPA CEQA guy. And he has, his comments were that he stood up and he said this, mitigating impacts is especially important in urban areas, mitigating noise impacts. And I was just shocked by that statement because, CEQA says you're required to mitigate significant impacts, noise impacts in all communities. Why would urban communities be more important? And this was a comment by the guy whose charge it is to comply with CEQA everywhere, not just in urban areas. So I kind of pointed that out and politely said, CEQA doesn't work that way. You need to make that commitment to all areas. So that was a big concern to me, but I was heartened by the notion of the requirement that staff, the charge that staff has been given to come back and do more detailed noise analyses. Because it wasn't just Acton that pointed out this 24-hour averaging problem. There was a high school teacher there who pointed it out from
Science teacher from,
not Silmar, Lake View Terrace, I think, so
Yeah.
that area, maybe Cable Canyon area. And somebody else pointed it out as well, so that was encouraging. The other thing, and I meant to call on it today, but I got behind on this stuff. I didn't realize this, but apparently the high-speed rail has filed with the Surface Transportation Board, the feds, to be given permission to be in charge of their own NEPA action. So to take, so NEPA is the National Environmental Policy Act. It is implemented by the lead agency that's the federal agency. So in this case, it would be the Federal Railway Administration. And so normally, high-speed rail is the lead agency for CEQA, Federal Railway Administration is the lead agency for NEPA, and they work together and collaboratively put out one document. But apparently, sometime in the last few months, high-speed rail has applied to be the NEPA agent, to take that responsibility completely from FRA and put it on high-speed rail. Now that's a problem for me because their high-speed rail is already trying to avoid CEQA compliance under the Interstate Commerce Clause. So if they take away CEQA, and then they carry the entire mantle of NEPA,
And the guy who's doing it does
It's
already
not-
say
it-
it's only
it's-
about urban.
urban, not.
it's like, so I had to call this morning because the public comment period on their application has closed. It closed several months ago and I didn't know that. So I meant to call today, but they're in the East Coast, so I should have called earlier and I missed it. Because that docket is still open before the STB, so we can participate in it too. I just need to figure out where and why, and read the federal regulations on how to do it. Because Surface Transportation Board's got really, you cannot be represented before the STB unless you're a lawyer, or unless you represent yourself. So that's in December of 2015, when we went through all that, I was representing me in the filings that I made, because town council can't represent itself, we have to have a lawyer do it. So, anyway, I don't know if this type of proceeding's the same way, I'll have to find out.
So you're gonna try and call the Surface Transportation Board, get more information.
Well, it sounds like it's FRA instead of, so that's why I have to call, but it's Stephanie Perez.
We met her.
Yeah, we know her, and she's NEPA, but she's FRA, that's why I think she's the right person. So I don't think it's before the STB, which means we might be able to do it as a town council, I don't know though.
She came here and met with us and Stephanie.
I only met her in LA at the scoping meeting, I never met her outside of LA. I don't
Didn't she
remember.
come out here?
I don't remember.
Okay.
Your memory's better than mine.
No, it's not.
Anyway, that's all I have to add.
All right.
So wasn't that lovely? Our high-speed rail meeting, everybody? And thank you to all the people that traveled with us and went down there to testify. It's not easy. It's not easy. But we did it.
Yeah.
Again.
It was encouraging too. I
It
mean,
made a
afterwards,
difference.
we left there very encouraged,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was really encouraged.
so, good sign.
Indeed.
What was that?
Excuse me, I'm just talking about
And
that I don't trust them, and I don't believe that, you know, they can pay all of the service they want to the Acton Town Council and everybody else here, but I'm sorry.
I
just
agree. I
can't
agree.
believe that they really care enough to do their very best.
I think they're struggling right now because of this,
Sure.
the audit that came out, and they're trying to
Win as much favor back as possible.
try to look like they
Points.
care about us and the whatever, but Central
The
Valley.
commissions- The commissions were awesome, that they have to do the further study. Cause I think they're gonna show that that's very detrimental to our community, you know?
Yes, and one of the comments was that their current thresholds for significant noise impact, even with this 24-hour averaging, they allow a tripling of the sound level before it's deemed significant in quiet areas, before the impact's deemed significant. That's why none of these places are ever deemed to have significant noise impacts. Well, the PUC, the California Public Utilities Code, when they did the tri-tip EIR and in the Angeles Forest area, right there near Vincent Substation, their criteria for significant impact that was adopted was 5 decibels, which is a half an increase of noise. Not even, you know, just they go up by, you know, it's not a doubling, yeah, so it's like tripling to like, the difference is tripling to half, and I don't know who had this comment, but pointing it out that, you know, high-speed rail can't adopt thresholds of significance for noise that are that different from other state agencies. They have to have some harmony
Yeah.
in how the state
Yeah.
views significant noise impacts. So it was I don't know, we're gonna hold them to the promises.
Central Valley was there, representatives from the Central Valley, again, they follow it.
Awesome.
Shelley.
Shelley was there. Mhm.
And every governmental agency, every Kathy Barber's office, I'm trying to think of Santa Clarita.
Schiff.
Adam Schiff sent a representative, there were reps from everywhere, and every representative stood up there and spoke on behalf of whatever official they were representing, and they were all saying, put that train underground, all of them.
But nobody's talking about stopping
Well,
projects.
yeah,
Now,
so,
but the finances could
well,
stop.
I was gonna say, cause from that LA Times article, they talked about that the expiration of the federal funds, and that we may end up having to, the state may end up having to pay back the money that's already been used from that, so.
Yeah, and it was a
That
significant
was like
amount.
$20 billion.
Yeah.
It was It was, I don't know if it was that much, but it was.
It was close.
It was a significant
They have
amount.
to pay back to the feds.
Yes.
It's only like 3 or 4 million.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, yeah, it is, yeah, it was,
Yeah.
that was a big deal. I
But,
agree.
yeah, but it's, that expiration comes up pretty quick.
Yes, yeah.
So, that seems like that's actually a realistic thing.
Does anybody bring up the question, why we need a high-speed rail to Palmdale?
Yeah.
I mean, the next train doesn't even go there.
Okay, so
One,
like,
1/3 of the trains is not the vehicle, it says, don't go to Palmdale.
from 2000,
Palmdale Airport, duh, you know?
way more than, most of the trains don't stop in Palmdale, but they're gonna go through Acton anyway. From 2000 to 2014, that's almost all that was said to them. It's like, don't build it. If you're gonna build it, keep it out of Acton. We showed them how to build this thing without even going into Acton. Okay, so you can spend, like from about 2005, I should say, 2005 to about 2014, because they first came to the council in 2005. I remember it like it was yesterday. And so, and that was for the programmatic EIR before Prop 1A was even on the table, right? And so that's what we said. And so for what, how many years is that? Almost 10 years, it meant nothing. And in 2014, they came out with their routes, and they had 5 routes, and every one of them went through Acton above ground. So I don't know how many more years you're supposed to scream at them, don't build it. I wish they wouldn't build it. I agree, and we all agree. But if you just say that, and you say nothing else, then by law, they can ignore every one of your comments. If you don't point out where they violated CEQA because they're not applying the right thresholds of significance, where they're not assessing noise impacts properly, if you don't pick apart everything that they do and show why it's a violation of the law, those comments they must comply with. And if they don't, they'll lose a lawsuit. But if you don't do that, if you just stand up and say, don't build it, it's a waste of money, put the money into water, they love those comments. They'll write them down all day, because by law, they can just ignore it. So, you know, frankly, I am getting yelled at several times a week by people who are angry with me, because all my time now is being spent on figuring out a way to make it so it doesn't kill this community. And I'm tired of hearing people telling me that what I should be fighting is the project. I did that for flipping 9 years. And not only did it not work, but they doubled down and gave us 5 routes above ground in Acton. We're down to 3 now. I don't disagree with you, but let me just ask you, how do I stop the project?
Why not? I'm just asking a
And
question.
how, I mean, no, I know, but you, and I apologize, I'm not directing these comments at you, but I am a target for comments from people saying, I've sold out and that I'm working with high-speed rail. And I am flipping tired of it, because I tried for 9 years and got nowhere. And I don't mean just went to a comment, whatever area, and gave comments. I mean, hundreds of hours trying to fight this dang thing, and did nothing. And I know by the law, the way CEQA was written, and the Prop 1A statute, you can stand up till the cows come home and say, don't build it, and that rail line is gonna go right over you, literally. And legally, they can do that. They can do everything you say. So I have said this before, and I'll say it again. I will support anybody's effort that they stand up to stop this project. I'll be right there with them. But I can't lead 2 different.
Yeah, it's like Plan B is basically what we're on doing.
Well,
Plan A was to
Or
try
I'm
to-
fine with the Plan A, I'll
Oh,
support
no,
it. I
what I'm
can't-
saying, how we got here was that you tried Plan A, we didn't
We
get
had to
stopped, so
move
now
on.
we're on Plan B, which is.
But I'll support somebody else's plan. I
Yeah.
will support anybody who wants to stand up and try to stop this project, but
And what Jackie's
I
talking
don't know what
about.
else to do. I don't know how to stop it. I
We
don't.
had a meeting last Monday night before we went to the high-speed rail meeting, and it was presented again to us.
Oh, I got yelled at again.
Several times about
Why are you?
why we just don't stop the project?
Just fight the project.
Fight the whole project.
I was like, fine,
No,
tell
we
me
can't.
how. I'm just waiting.
We can't, we've already,
No, I'm waiting for them.
okay, I'll support them too.
You know, it's.
I'm there.
Tell me how to do it and I will do it. I've run at every single target I can think of, and some that seem very unlikely, and none of them worked. And I know the law, they I'm sorry if I get a little bit upset, but I put a huge amount of work into this, and I'm still getting complaints and accusations of working with high-speed rail.
No good deed goes unpunished.
That's right.
How many people showed up to that?
That was not a complaint, just a comment.
We had
No,
about-
I apologize, I wasn't.
We had about
I'm-
30 people.
I'm venting.
About 30 total people at that Monday night meeting.
Yeah.
And we were, I'm sorry, but I was disappointed. We've announced it, we've got a preferred route on the table. All of Acton and Agua Dulce should have been there. Everybody that could walk should have been there. So,
We did get one person from Agua Dulce
at that
at the
meeting,
meeting. Nobody from Agua Dulce came to the hearing though.
No.
I don't know why the papers reported somebody from Agua Dulce. There was
I
nobody.
don't know, they said that.
If there was someone from Agua Dulce, they
Didn't come to
did
that
not
conclusion.
speak.
Yeah.
We don't know them.
Yeah, well, they didn't speak, because usually you announce yourself, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he still keeps doing a good job with the LA Times article. There was a really good article in the Santa Clarita Signal, and I think there was a really good one in the AV Press too, a small one. Just small,
Yeah.
small. Okay,
Alright. Okay.
what, Julie?
Said Allison wrote that story.
Oh, got it, okay.
Alright. Unfinished new business. Alright, as for next agenda, I think we had,
It's Edison.
yeah, it is a little,
And we've SEA for new.
Yeah, this is SEA,
and then points on the driver's license, we gotta get that.
driver's license on, okay.
And I think we're also having Compass is coming for AT&T.
If he gets his stuff here in time, I have not seen anything yet, so.
Yeah, he said 2 to 3 days from last Friday, so.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna see something by midweek, I think he'll have to wait,
Okay.
I wanna make sure that we have enough,
Have to wait till
Time.
January. so.
yeah. So,
Is it, wait, I think Edison's coming in the middle of the month. I don't remember exactly.
they're all kind of blank, I just know that the first meeting we packed, and obviously we'll have, the appointments and officer election, we'll talk about that, hopefully we'll have a quorum, so we can do something.
Kelly will be back.
Yes. All right,
Is, Rob officially gone?
yes,
Who?
Rob,
wow.
Oh, yeah, Rob is gone, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't hear what she said.
Effective when?
At the election. so.
He didn't.
That was
He
his-
didn't, he didn't submit, he didn't want to renew.
He can't do it right now.
He's got some job commitments,
He's gonna
that's
do
gonna
some
be
travel.
traveling. So his last meeting was on November.
Thank you, Deputy Soffa. Thank you.
Or just be informed, you know, to somebody about disaster.
Oh, no, but that's okay, so we
He's
should have a
gonna
conversation with
continue
him.
with that.
He's gonna continue with that, so he says he feels like that's his commitment, and he feels like he's most.
He'll do that like as a liaison.
Yeah,
And plus, someone contacted me and said that her husband was interested in working with Rob on that too.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I'll-
he's still gonna be. involved.
Okay, so he's still gonna do that as
Yes.
a liaison.
Yes.
And is he still working on the railroad situation?
Quiet zones.
Yeah, as far as I know, he is, I can ask
I
him.
know he's an affected resident,
Yeah,
so I'm not, he's an affected resident, I know it
actually,
affects him personally.
actually, he moved.
Or did he move?
He's still in Acton, but he is now
Further out.
much further.
Or we'll have to find out because, if he's not gonna,
Yeah, we may wanna
Yeah,
take
we
up the
can do it.
mantle. Yeah.
yeah.
So we will get an answer on who's
Share
gonna
that.
be taking that mantle, whether he's still gonna, on his own, or as a liaison, work on that, so. All
We
right,
had post information on that.
yeah, yeah. Well, he has a list of folks who signed up.
So what do we have for, agenda? Then we have Edison.
Edison,
SEA.
SEA,
Driver's
driver's license, and, possibly, yeah, that's it.
AT&T.
Possibly AT&T if he gets the stuff here.
There's something, oh, no, there's also transportation. You
Oh,
invited them.
yeah,
Santa
Santa
Clarita
Clarita
Transit.
Transit.
So
Center.
read it again for Lily.
Yep, Edison,
SEAs.
SEA, the AT&T tower on, off of Red Rover. And then Santa Clarita Transit is coming to talk about, some new transit options and things that they're gonna be having that they thought might be pertinent to our residents.
The buses and bus
He was-
routes and
yeah,
stuff.
Yeah, bus routes and he just did kind of mass transit stuff that they're working on.
I read a little
I've
bit
been
about that.
writing stuff in the journal for weeks now about,
Mhm.
The bus routes.
Palmdale route in
Yeah.
Santa Clarita, wanting to come back up.
Yeah, so I think it's part of it.
And, appointments and officers.
Yes.
So that's on the agenda too, though.
Alright. And we are adjourned, record.
Well, this is a record.
There you go.
I think we should